Hello everybody, and you're welcome to Python Made Simple. In today's video, we'll be looking at variables in Python. Now, a variable is a container in which we store values. Now, in our various homes, we use containers to store items like milk, sugar, coffee, and so many other things. We can consider these containers as variables. Now we go further to label these containers to help us easily identify them. In Python too, we give our variable names so that we can easily identify them. So technically, a variable allows you to store a value by assigning it to a name, which can be used to refer to the value later in the program. We use the equal sign to do assigning in Python, but it's not every character or everything on your keyboard you can use to label or name a variable. There are certain restrictions that apply. That is, you're allowed to use your letters, names, and numbers, and then the underscore. But with this, you can only start a variable name with a letter or an underscore. You can't start a variable name with a number. So we'll be using Python interactive mode so that we'll get our immediate output so that we can catch up and understand what we are doing. So for example, I'm creating this variable called ABC. And within it, I'm storing the number 45 in it. So anywhere I go and I type ABC, it loads the number 45. And now we can mix that with other characters which are allowed. And then anywhere we go and we type ABC underscore 12, we get what we stored. Now let's try this. 24 BE, sorry, it's equal to, so let's go. So you've seen there's a syntax error, so it means you cannot use a number to start a variable name. But check this out too. Underscore sorry, I'll make something. So underscore WER45. So you see it has taken it. Good. Now Python is very case sensitive, and so using a capital for the beginning of a variable will be different from using a small letter for the beginning of a variable, or when you mix the cases. Now for example, if I decide to store 45 and fun with small letters, and I want to call this 45 this fun, and I decide to use capital F to call it, it will tell me it's not defined. That is, it is very, very case sensitive. Fun with a capital F is different from fun with a small f. Now, just like numbers and strings, you can perform other operations with variables. So for example, if I decide to make x being equal to 2, so using the print statement, I call on x, okay, so it's 2. So let's tell Python to print x plus 3. Yes, you have it there, 5. Okay, we can do that with so many other things. So let me try this other tutorial as a variable name, and I assign it to fun. Okay, so using the print statement, I say Python should multiply what I've stored in tutorial 3 times and give me the result. So it gives me fun 3 times. Okay, so next we'll be looking at the input function. But before I go to the input function, you can reassign variable names to different values, and it would work. But for me, I would advise you shouldn't do that, because as you code and you forget about stuff, you would end up getting errors, and that would make your work very difficult. So looking at this, I can decide to say x. Okay, we know x is equal to 2, so let's just confirm that. X is equal to 2, that's true. Now I can assign x to 34, so let's call on x and see what it gives us. It gives us 34. So it gives us the very recent assignment we've done with regards to the variable. Okay, so now using the input function in Python, so x equal to input bracket close. Now, when you create programs and websites, it's more of like an interactive something. Yes, you have the user interacting with the software or the program you've created. Now, the input function allows you to interact with a user and request various inputs you want. So now, using the input function, I am asking for an input which will be stored as x. So let's save this and run. Okay, so it has run. So let's put 4 and print x. So you see, it has taken x, the input I gave it as 4, and when I asked it to print x, which I stored as the input function, it has given me 4. Now, the reason why it just gave a blank line for me to put an input was because I didn't put any prompt message within the brackets of the input function. Now, that would make your coding very difficult, so it's advisable you use the prompt message when using the input function to allow the user understand what you require from him or her. So for example, I want to request for a name. So using a prompt message, I'm telling the user to enter a name. Okay, so let's save this and run. Okay, so enter your name. So I decide to put my name, enter. So let's call on the variable name and see what it gives us. So it gives us the name I have entered. Okay, so now I'm going to request for 2 separate inputs. I'm going to request for an odd number and an even number, and I'll add these two. I want to show you something. So let's assign the variable x to, okay, so using the input function, say enter an even number. Okay, and on my next line, using the input function, say enter an odd number. Yeah. Now I come to the last line, and I want the sum of these two. Okay, so let's just print this. So let's save and then run this. Okay. So enter an even number. So I've entered 4. Enter an odd number. I've entered 3. So let's print Z. You've realized that it hasn't really added a number. It has put them together as if they were strings. So this is what you should take note of. The input function in Python considers every input you give it as a string. So it's now left unto you, the programmer, to tell Python to consider these two numbers as integers. So now coming back to edit this code, this is what we will do. So in closing this code, the input in brackets and calling on the integer function, we would now have this. So let's save that and run, and let's see what we will get. So enter an even number, so 6. Enter an odd number, so 7. So print set. So now you see. So you should take note of this. If not, you would end up having problems and issues with that. But when you are dealing with strings, there's no need calling, or it's just you just use the two strings you are trying to put together, and then you get a result or an output. So this is all for variables in Python. I would leave some trial questions at the end of this video. Just try your hands on them and let's see. Thank you very much. I'll be expecting your answers in the comment section. Bye.